Alright boys, so today I have a build for you guys. This build is focused around the Lightfall pre-order exotic Quicksilver Storm. When I first got my hands on this thing, I was like, it's okay, nothing crazy, nothing to lose your mind about. But the more I started to use it and the more I started to take it into endgame content, one, the more fun I started to have with it because I actually learned how you're supposed to play with it. And two, I realized this gun actually shreds any enemy that you put in front of it. Whether it's a red bar, a yellow bar, a champion with anti-barrier auto, just absolutely rips through the shield. It is a fantastic weapon, so let's go ahead and jump right into this build. So for this build, we're going to be on solo warlock, mainly to take advantage of radiant. Now I did try to make a build on titan for this weapon using actor Morrig, and it was fun, but I found this build to be way better, mainly because I found it easier to spam radiant on solo warlock than titan, because I feel like I'm too busy running around trying to get my hammer back as opposed to actually using the weapon. Now I am using incinerator snaps, that way it's easier for me to proc those ignitions. This thing does a lot of scorch damage, so you'll see ignitions pretty frequently. And I'm also using solar grenade because I love the way it looks, and it actually does pretty good damage as well. For my aspects, I am using touch of flame and I'm using Icarus dash. As for my fragments, I am using ember of torches, ember of solace, Ember of Searing, and Ember of Ashes. Ember of Torches will allow me to become Radiant upon landing a powered melee attack, which Radiant is a 25% weapon damage buff, and Ember of Solace will increase the duration of Radiant. Ember of Searing will grant me melee energy upon defeating scorched targets, which I'm going to be scorching everything with Incinerator Snap and Solar Grenade. And Ember of Ashes will apply more scorch attacks, which will lead to more ignitions. I forgot to mention earlier in the video, the gameplay you're seeing in the background is of a master Nightfall run. I am also 1590 in this gameplay, so 1590 light level on a 1600 difficulty activity. Now the loadout you're seeing in the gameplay in the background, of course I am using Quicksilver Storm. I'm also using an empty vessel with auto loading Vorpal weapon. This drops from the Nightfall playlist or just the Vanguard Strikes playlist. And then I'm using my Hothead Adept with tracking module Explosive Light. But I want to circle back to Quicksilver Storm because this is what the build is focused around. Now like I said in the beginning of the video, you get this exotic from pre-ordering Lightfall. It is a bit expensive, so don't spend the money if you don't have the extra money to spend, but it is a very good exotic. This weapon is one of two exotic 720 round per minute auto rifles, the only other one being Tommy's Matchbook. Now stats wise, this weapon is actually pretty decent. It has 100 stability, which is actually phenomenal, and it has about 50 range, which is actually pretty good for 720 round per minute autos. But where this weapon really shines is with its exotic traits. Now the first one you get is Rocket Tracers. Landing multiple hits turns your next shot into a homing micro rocket. Think about Mountaintop, obviously not as potent as Mountaintop, but you land about 7 or 8 shots with your auto rifle and the next shot is a tracking rocket. It doesn't stop you from firing, it just shoots it out of the side of the weapon. I don't even know where it comes from, but as you're shooting, boom, you see a little rocket fly towards your enemy, and it happens actually pretty frequently because it has 50 bullets in the magazine. You can actually proc about 6 to 7 rockets while shooting with a full mag. And I actually noticed that the rockets have a bit of intelligence to them. If you actually kill the enemy on that bullet that's supposed to send out the rocket will actually go find the closest enemy to you and do damage to them. So it actually is pretty good. You're not really just going to be wasting rockets, they're going to hit somebody. Now the next exotic trait you get is Grenade Chaser. Landing multiple rockets loads a grenade. Hold your reload button to switch into a grenade launcher mode. So essentially what it's saying is as you're doing damage with this weapon and landing those micro rockets, you're going to see on the left side of your screen grenades prepped. When you see that, you can have a maximum of 3 grenades prepped. You can hold your reload button and it turns your weapon essentially into a breech-loaded grenade launcher. Now the reload is much faster than a breech-loaded grenade launcher, but the trajectory of the grenade itself is not as fast as a breech-loaded grenade launcher, so you do kind of have to learn how to aim it. I'm still learning, I'm not the best at it, but let me tell you, this thing actually does really good damage for it being a grenade launcher that you don't need ammo for. You can do pretty good burst damage to a champion, majors, whatever it is. This thing is actually nuts because you have really good ad clear with the micro rockets, pretty good single target damage with the micro rockets and the grenade launcher, and it's a 720 auto, so you can just beam targets and it's anti-barrier auto. Now side note, the grenade launcher mode doesn't count for anti-barrier auto. I tested it, so that does kind of suck, but it's okay because you can just shred through them anyway with the micro rockets. Another thing worth mentioning is that this weapon does come with high caliber rounds, which means that you're going to stagger enemies much easier with this weapon, and in PvP you're going to have increased flinch against guardians. For this build I have 100 resilience, 78 recovery, and 100 strength. Now the reason for that is because I want to be able to have my melee back as much as possible, as well as having my damage resistance with resilience. My exotic armor piece of choice for this build is Claws of Ahamkara, mainly because I want to have 2 melee charges so I can proc Radiant that much more frequently. And if you guys know me, you guys already know that I love Claws of Ahamkara. Now moving on to my mods, I am using Melee Wellmaker, Elemental Ordnance, Seeking Wells, Elemental Charge, Heavy-Handed, and 2 stacks of Bomber. Melee Wellmaker and Elemental Ordnance will spawn Solar Elemental Wells upon getting Melee and Grenade Final Blows, which those Solar Elemental Wells would then track me with Seeking Wells and make me become Charger Light with Elemental Charge. I would take advantage of those stacks of Charger Light by using Heavy-Handed, which will refund me half my melee energy when I use my melee attack while Charger Light, and having double stacks of Bomber will allow me to generate grenade energy whenever I cast my Rift. So there you boys have it, there is the complete build. Now this build is definitely geared towards endgame content. In low tier content like seasonal activities or playlist strikes or whatever it may be, enemies just die way too quickly to take full advantage of this weapon. Now this build will still work, but you're gonna notice that enemies just die too fast. They just die way too fast. So if you start using this build in endgame content like Master Nightfalls, you're really gonna start seeing the potential and you're gonna have a lot of fun. So definitely get this weapon if you have the extra money to spend. I spent $100 on the Lightfall pre-order. You know, I think it was the deluxe edition or whatever it was, but I have this weapon now and I'm so happy I got it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Deuces.